Hello viewers, in this video we are going to talk about literature in general, what is literature. So let's get started. First of all, we are going to do the introduction of literature. So we say that literature is one of the fine arts like music, dance, painting, sculpture, as it is meant to give aesthetic pleasure rather than serve any utilitarian purpose. It consists of great books which, whatever their subject, are notable for literary form or expression. It is the aesthetic worth alone or aesthetic worth combined with general intellectual excellence which entitles a book to be considered as literature. In the realms of poetry, drama, and fiction, the greatest works are selected on the basis of aesthetic excellence or the beauty of expression. Books dealing with other subjects as history, biography, natural science, religion, politics, etc., are considered as literature for their reputation of intellectual eminence combined with aesthetic worth in the form of style, composition, and general force of presentation. This is a general definition of literature. When we say that a book is not literature, we generally mean that it has no aesthetic worth, while when we call a book on history, politics, religion, etc. as literature, we mean that it has got aesthetic value. It gives us pleasure. You can say that this definition excludes from literature scientific types of writing in which the writer uses language for logical, purely intellectual exposition of matters of fact and generalization from facts. It also excludes utilitarian type of writing in which the writer uses language for furthering his own or other people's interests in the business of earning a living. There are two types of literature: applied literature and ParaLiterature. The two terms can be properly explained by studying Darwin's The Origin of Species and Keats' Ode on Agrarian Urn. The Origin of Species has certainly some literary merit in the form of expressive power, as Darwin has communicated certain information to the reader in an appropriate style. But in this case, the expression is not so important as the information. Darwin expressed himself for the purpose of putting his readers in possession of a certain body of information, and thus persuading them of the cogency of certain line of argument. Even if the expression were clumsy, the information nevertheless might be true and the argument reasonable. The literary quality of the book has served a certain specific purpose, and there are two elements in the book: the merit of Darwin's purpose and the merit of expressive power, which are easily distinguishable. But these two elements cannot be distinguished in Keats' Ode on Agrarian Urn. It gives us no information which may be true or false, and no argument which may or may not be cogent. In this case, the expression satisfies us simply by existing as expression, and not as a means to an end. Here, art does take us beyond the domain of art. This is what is called ParaLiterature. In applied literature, we have to ignore the purpose of the writer in order to appreciate its literary value, as in the case of Darwin's The Origin of Species and Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. But in ParaLiterature, we need not exclude the author's purpose, because here the writer has no purpose except that the expression should exist for the mere sake of existing itself. So, generally, when we speak of literature, we refer to ParaLiterature. Expression, thus, is the fundamental thing in literature. But what does the author express? It is his experience of life. Now, as experience is the substance of literature. Everything that can be experienced by a man in life for the sake of experience becomes the subject matter of literature. Thus, the scope of literature is illimitable, and wherever there is life, there is the possibility of power experience, and so of literature. This experience can be intellectual as well as emotional. The main criterion is that it must be satisfying in itself and not cater for something beyond and outside it. In applied literature, the experience of the other has to be excluded or transformed into something pleasant in order to enjoy it. In pure literature, experience is expressed as enjoyable merely by virtue of being expressed. But the mere expression of experience is not enough. It has to be communicated to the reader. Literature communicates experience. Whenever we experience something in our lives, so we express that through literature. In other words, the experience which lived in the author's mind must live again in the reader's mind. The writer has not merely to give the reader what he has experienced or how the experience has been taken, but he must give to the reader his own experience and transplant it from his you can say his own point of view and his own mind to the readers. In other words, the experience, whole and entire, must be communicated to the reader. This is not easy to attain, as the writer's experience is his own, a part and parcel of his life. It is very process of his own life, and by no possibility can it be shared by another person. But the writer can do so by the power of imagination. Imagination is a very powerful tool. His experience may be actual or a sort of daydreaming, but imagination can transform it into something as a whole to the reader. By means of his imagination, the writer can continue the existence of his experience and communicate it to the reader as if he has recently plucked it out of the flux of life. In order to achieve this, the writer must arouse the same imagination in his reader and control it in such a manner that the reader may also imitate that experience. This he achieves by means of words which should act as symbols of his experience, so that it can be properly represented to the reader. The writer must translate his experience in such symbolic equivalents of language that the symbol may be translated back again by the reader's imagination into a similar experience. It is here that the skill of the artist lies, and his highest artistic power is called into play, because the medium of language at his disposal is limited. While there is no limit to the possibility of imaginative experience, his language must not only express his experience, but also represent the same experience to the reader. The writer has to rely on his reader's ability to respond to what his language can only suggest. And for this, he must have the sense of language. In fact, it is this sense of language which distinguishes a literary artist from his fellows. So this was all about literature in general. I hope you got it. So thank you so much for watching this video.